Okay, so there's a few other places where we want to add the following information, not just in our profiles that we're returning, but also in our activities. If we go back to an earlier module, let's say module 14, for example, and we go and get the activities, then also included in this is going to be our attendee information. And it would also be useful on the client side to display the information about whether the user is following another user, and also the followers count, and display that inside our attendee objects as well as our profile objects. And we're going to use the same trick in all of these different handlers to go and get that information into the objects that we're returning here. So we'll head back to VS Code and let's clean things up at the top once again. And what we'll do is we'll start off with our attendee DTO. And let's also open up our profile class as well at the same time, just to be slightly lazy. And we also want to add the following properties to our attendee object. So inside the attendee DTO, we'll just paste in those three properties: the following, followers count, and following count. And then what we'll do, we'll go back to our mapping profiles and we'll update the attendee DTO object. And where there's an opportunity to be lazy and use a bit of copying and pasting, I'm going to do exactly that and paste in the followers mappings to our attendee objects as well. So let's try and organize things inside here so that I don't go off the screen. This file is getting quite busy, but we'll add the properties inside there for the followers count, the following count, and the following. That's nice and easy, but what we also want to do is go to our activities list and our activity details, where we're also returning the attendees. And VS Code has finally caught up and said, no, this property, the S property, the activity attendee, doesn't have a followers property. Of course it doesn't. That's part of our app user. So what we'll do is we'll say app user.followers, and we'll do the same for the second one. And we'll also do the same down here as well. And we'll make that app user. And that's better. Now the errors have gone away. So we need to go across to our activities, which are returning attendees. So we'll go to open up our list from the activities folder, and I've got some things I can remove here. So when I see this, let's go ahead and remove unnecessary usings. And what we want to do here is effectively the same trick to our project 2, where we're passing the information to our activity DTO. We also want to pass our current username object. So we're going to go and add the iUser accessor, and say user accessor, and bring in application interfaces, and we'll initialize the field from parameter. And once again, we're just going to do the same thing here. Now that we've got access to our username, we'll send that across to the mapping configuration that is used to project to the activity DTO. So once again, we're going to create a new object. Once again, be careful here because we don't get type safety by doing this, because this is an anonymous object. And we'll specify the user accessor and get username. And let's bring this down as well. So that's the activity list. We also need to do the same for the activity details because we're returning the information there as well. So let's go to our application activities details. And once again, I'm just going to remove any unnecessary usings as we open these up and I notice them. It doesn't matter. If you notice me not doing this for every single class, it's not that big a deal. Obviously, in your projects, you would want to make it completely clean. But anyway, once again, to our handler, we're going to add the iUser accessor and say user accessor, and we'll say using application interfaces and initialize the field from parameter. And then we just need to pass our new object and say current username equals user accessor dot get username, and bring this down. So let's go and test our activity list and our activity details, make sure we're getting the properties that we'd expect and also the following details for the currently logged in user. Now I'm going to be logged in as Bob because I'm just sending up the normal token, and if I click on send, then we should find that we are following Tom in the attendees list. We've got the followers count and the following count, which is accurate based on the test that I've done. And if we take a look at Jane's profile inside here, then following is false and followers count is 0. Again, that's what we're looking for. And when it comes to Bob's own profile, then we should never see the following equal to true there. We're still returning the property, but it's always going to be false. Obviously, a user cannot follow themselves. So then all we need to do is take care of the individual profiles that we're returning. So we'll head back to VS Code and let's open up inside the profiles. We want the details, and once again we're going to need to add our user accessor here so we get access to the current user's username. And we'll bring in application interfaces and we'll initialize the field from parameter, and then we can just do exactly the same trick and we'll say new and current username equals user accessor.get username, and just reformat this a little bit. And what we should find now is that when we get Tom's profile as Bob, we'll get the following property updated as well. So let's go take a look. And if I get Tom's profile as Bob, then we want to see this updating to true, and if I click send, then great. That's exactly what we're looking for. But there's one place where I've forgotten to add this, and if we just go back to our followings and the list for our followers, then I did it for this one, but I didn't do it for the one below. So what I'll do is I'm just going to copy this line and just add it to our configuration here as well, and just drop this down. And this should give us both the observers and the targets the information about whether or not we're following that particular user. And if we just go back and test this and just make sure that when we get Bob's followings or followers that we see the following information for Tom, in this case returning true, and it does for this case. And if we check the followers, then this was the one that was already working fine. So what we have now is enough information on our API to go and configure this on the client user interface, and we'll take a look at that next.